Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin. I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we are in studio to have a Western and Eastern roundtable on astrology. And we're going to be speaking largely about 2012. Because it's really coming up in a matter of weeks at this point. And it's been discussed, of course, biblically, virtually, and ancient scripts have been referring to this time like no other. And it's really worth our while to take a good look. Not the Hollywood version, no, not that at all. But a very grounded view in ancient astrology, West and East. So with us to discuss this are two gentlemen who I've had on the show before in a similar kind of roundtable, not focused as we are today on 2012 from a number of points of view: economic, political, social, militaristic, and, of course, geological. We want to know it all, as much as we can in this period of time, so we can actually be prepared mentally, emotionally, and physically for what's going on, not to mention, of course, spiritually. That's the purpose of today's show, and so please stay with us and tell your friends before we get on to the show in too much depth, and you'll be saying, oh my God, I should have told them before. I would have wanted them to hear. So, with that said, I want to just remind you again, this is Mitchell J. Rabin at A Better World on Progressive Radio Network. We join you every Monday at 6 p.m., and I'm very glad that you're joining us again today. And with us today is Monty Taylor, the renowned astrologer, with a particular emphasis in his work on Jungian psychology and the use of mythological imagery and archetypes. Monty manages to elucidate people's charts in a way, and of places and time periods, unlike anyone I've actually come across. And he lectures widely around the New York area and draws large crowds every single time he does because of what he has to say and the simple, articulate way he has to say it. And with us also is Arun Singh, who has also been a guest on the show. Welcome, Arun. And Arun has studied Vedic astrology in New Delhi back in the 1990s, and he inherited a love of astrology and spirituality from his father in, a fairly traditional Indian setting, but came to the United States to study psychology, computer science, and filmmaking. And he's always, also I should say, chemistry. So he's got a scientific bent. And today's show is not going to be talking about is astrology real and legitimate and authentic or not as a mode of inquiry. We've graduated from that. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what it has to deliver to us as an authentic, ancient, and in a sense, time-proven, and there is literature, scientifically based literature that shows the efficacy of this point of view. I've covered that with Monty and others on prior shows. If you want, just go to our website, www.abetterworld.net, and you can research it. Now we're going to start with a platform of diving right in to the matters at hand. 2012 and all of the important, pertinent conjunctions that occur there. So, Monty and Arun, thanks so much for being on the show today.
A joy to be with you, Mitchell.
I'm so glad. Excellent. Let's just not waste time since I want to cover so much. You heard that rather bold assertion at the beginning.
Sure, lead on. Lead on.
From that point of view, Monty, let's pick up with you first. There have been some eclipses as of late, very recently.
Right.
Could you name the dates of them, and what are their effects, what are their influences on what's going on with us today?
Well, the two eclipses, if you want to specifically look at that detail of the big picture that's going on, yes. You see, we're in cycles of time, and we happen to be in a perfect storm now of the repetition of three major historical cycles that are occurring all at once, instead of, let's say, 100 years apart. So as I say all
or
the time,
50 or 25 or 12 or 6.
But this time we're having the planetary returns of the American French Industrial Revolution. We're having the planetary returns
Which is
of
what?
Which is
What is that? That's
Pluto going into Capricorn.
into Capricorn, right?
And we're having the Neptune going into Pisces, which is the planetary return of the American Civil War, and all the other things that went on, such as the Opium Wars in China. See, we're talking mid-1800s. And we're having the Uranus return of the Great Depression and the stock market crash of 1929.
Oh, okay. So when
All
did
at
each
once.
of those three...
All at the same time.
They're coinciding right now.
Yes.
Which did each one start respectively?
When did each one start? Well, Neptune going in the Civil War aspect, that's actually happening now as we speak. It's going to be official around February 4th. And it's going to last for 15 years.
But the energy is building.
15 years. So
Pluto into
basically,
Capricorn started really, in May of 2008?
yes, indeed. But you see, these planets, they're outer planets. Therefore, they're much, much, much more powerful. They are slower in the manifestation of their expression. They're irrevocable, like a glacier or a tidal wave. They take a long time to build up and to culminate and to recede. So it's not like, we can make out a train schedule of when's the weather going to be better. This is a very long. The Pluto in Capricorn phenomenon is going to last until 2023. Neptune in Pisces is going to go on for 15 years. And Uranus has just changed signs and gone into Aries, and that's going to last another 7 years, and when you allow for retrograde motion, probably 8. So you have the overlapping of a Pluto, Neptune, and Uranian cycle, and those are the three outer planets.
Oh, my.
Those are the societal planets. Those that are the planets that change the society in which you live, rather you in society. And so we must look at this in a positive way.
As in structures, institutions,
yes, precisely.
even social values.
We're having the 8th Pluto return of the fall of Rome. I like to put it that way. Now, nobody during the fall of Rome knew Rome was falling. They could see things were not getting better, but they didn't choose a particular date of the fall of Rome. Neither did they know that the Renaissance was going on a day-to-day basis.
Surely.
It's all, you see, you
These
understand.
are slow transitions.
Yes, and they're recognized in history and in human consciousness
retrospectively.
after the fact, retrospectively. But you asked about eclipses, and I think, Vedic astrologers such as Arun are very, very good with eclipses. They use a different perspective. They don't say anything different. They have a very different way of looking at it. But it's
coming to the same conclusions.
Yes. But it's so fascinating. These two eclipses, we had a lunar eclipse on Saturday, December 10th. And that coincided to the very day with Uranus suddenly going into direct motion. Uranus has been retrograde for about 7 months. Have you noticed that the economy has sort of eased off the pressure over the last 4 or 5 months? Well, you watch now. Fasten your seatbelts. And it also rules war. We're bringing the troops home from Iraq. All of these things are getting triggered. Astrology
Just to
triggers.
come back, take a shower, and go to Iran.
Mm-hmm. Now, Uranus went direct the day we had a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses in Western astrology bring the past into the present for reevaluation to release that which no longer serves you. Outmoded ideas, concepts, policies, formulas, etc. Now, in 2 weeks, on Christmas Day, we are going to have a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses bring the future rushing into the present. Have you made space for it during the preceding lunar eclipse? That's
what a present,
says.
huh?
Yes. And on that day, Jupiter, expansion, internationalism, law, consciousness, higher wisdom, that planet's going to go direct. So we had Uranus go direct during a lunar eclipse on the 10th of December. 15 days later, on the 25th, we're having a solar eclipse and Jupiter goes direct.
Oh.
Jupiter is they call it the Great Benefic, but it's also the planet of rose-colored glasses and gambling. So when people are getting all these rosy false impressions, what they call a sucker's rally on Wall Street, I would be very, very careful.
No investments on Christmas Day.
Well, we're not saying that, but we're just saying please be very, very aware and don't follow the status quo. Get out of the herd mentality. You don't have to be a rebel or a revolutionary. That's one thing I'm stressing in all my lectures, the real word, the meaning of words. Revolution doesn't mean to overthrow something. Revolution means to make a complete cycle. To turn. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Latin.
It's really not as horrible as we would like to see, but the effects can be if we...
As we'd like to see, you mean as we suppose it might be?
Yes. You see, all of these things release stuck energy. In your personal life, in your country's life, in your corporate life, where is the energy stuck? Where is evolution being suppressed? And that is where you will find the greatest point of discomfort in your personal life or your collective.
Okay. Hold those thoughts. We will be back to them. They're important. But we want to go with the flow. So, Arun, I want to welcome you to the show. It's good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Good. As Monty was suggesting, Vedic astrology brings a whole different perspective, but oftentimes with rather similar, parallel kinds of interpretations, ultimately, at the end. What, from a Vedic astrology point of view, do the solar and lunar eclipses, the one we just had and the one that's forthcoming, mean to us?
Monty touched most of the things, and they bring same thing. Now coming back to what new perspective Vedic brings or are different. So I call it Vedic and Western as like mirror images. You know, in chemistry, there are atoms, they have a mirror image. So they complete each other. Now, eclipse cycle is, as per me, like a churning of consciousness, and the butter of evolution comes out. Or you can say like formation of cloud, and when the cloud and the rain and the lightning strikes. So eclipse.
So it reaches a certain culmination point and
then
an explosion.
Yes. So
or transformation.
Another thing, like Monty touched, past to current situation or bringing or preparing the future. So if you see current atmosphere, it's like history repeating itself of 40s, like a World War situation. The context is same. Content is different. So Germany, financial, European Union versus British vetoing, they are alone. And then America thinking whether they should enter and help European financial crisis. Same thing if you extend in China, Japan.
You're bringing, that's an interesting parallel.
Yes.
So,
between U.S. entering Nazi Germany and U.S. entering the Eurozone.
Exactly.
Precisely.
One about money and the other one about money.
And then
excuse me.
Japan, China,
Democracy.
getting powerful and entering like a European or American market. So it's like a Pearl Harbor, Wall Street in financial context, where Chinese, Japanese, they're becoming powerful. And same India, Pakistan, same problem. And rest of the world, if you see like Arab-Israel conflict, Israel is like alienated Arab. So it's like touching same. And going back to Monty, what bringing past into future. So something which was left unclear has to be reached the next stage, or what I call like a gear change in the car, next level. So all this eclipse, eventual result will be a good one. And how things will turn out depends on the placement of other planets, as well as in like house or zodiac sign they are. So as if now Jupiter or Saturn, they are in opposition. So if you see everywhere there is opposition, in each country, whether it is America, Britain, Europe, everywhere in the world.
Democrats, Republicans.
Exactly. So it's like everyone is opposing each other.
But it's interesting because if they could only see how similar they are, that they're really one.
Same energy, different expression.
Yep. Exactly.
So now basically we are reaching like another turning point, like a turning of a wheel. And to me, the way I see the World War brought like United Nations and, combining together. So now this time it's more like financial United Nation kind of thing forming. So how the different countries, they will come together, whether it is currency issue, like financial context, and how to handle that part. And the third thing which is repeating is immigration and border disputes. Same, if you go back during World War or 45, 50, that time period, same thing was happening everywhere. like country forming or, disputes between borders, whether it is America or, Asia or Arab or even Europe. So it's like same thing, but on a higher level or like a evolutionary next stage. So this is how I see, and we'll touch some more stuff.
Exactly. Wonderful. The themes of the past, Monty, you mentioned.
Yes.
Rome falling, Rome burning. Of course, suggestive that what we're going through is exactly that. And when we are in the middle of it, you don't see it.
Right.
You just quietly, softly burn. And it's only afterwards that you see it. So from that point of view, you also mentioned the cycle, I think it's a 162 cycle of Pluto into Capricorn, and the last time that happened was
243 years, usually.
248, excuse me.
Years.
The French Revolution occurred the last time Pluto visited Capricorn in this way. So you're talking about a confluence of energies that are each one distinctly awesome and either threatening or empowering.
Now they're happening all at once, and it's providing quite an energy cocktail. These cycles don't repeat all at once, usually.
Yes.
They're
separated.
They're much more dramatic now. And also, we must say that the planets, after they are physically discovered, have more of a relationship to human consciousness. These planets were not discovered
until in the last 100 to 200 years.
Yes, exactly. Right. So now, you see, they're going to impact what is. Well, what is not what was. So you see, when you have Pluto going into Capricorn, the change in governments were localized. Now it's kind of global. But it's very interesting when you talk about the French Revolution, and we're having the Pluto return of that. Well, it's very interesting to me that I said on your show last time, you watch, the French Revolution is more the character of the revolution now, where the aristocracy and the peasantry were at polarities with each other. This culminated again on the Uranus return of the French Revolution, which was the Russian Revolution, which was again the serfs revolting against the aristocracy.
So this is the Occupy Wall Street movement
now
being reflected.
Exactly. So instead of peasants in the street, and I remember this quote, I've been saying it on every program, there were peasants in the street with pitchforks and torches. But now the quote-unquote peasants in the streets are using cell phones and the internet. And you have the Occupy Wall Street, which is becoming global. That is what is so fascinating. And it's mutating and forging ahead and looking for its center. You see, now the last thing I heard was that Occupy Wall Street movement is now Occupy abandoned and repossessed houses. And they're going, this is exactly what the serfs did to the palaces of the Russian aristocracy.
Exactly what?
They threw one family out with 85 rooms in their house and housed 50 families in it.
Oh, they really moved in and squatted, as they say?
Yes, and they say, comrade, you're welcome to the upstairs bedroom, but the rest of us are going to live in the rest of this house, you see. Now, we're talking not allegories, but we're talking to a parallel kind of a movement here,
That's
you see.
Fascinating. I think one of the strongest points, just to make this point of the Occupy movement is that they have been helping people with foreclosures.
Yes.
They've been occupying those foreclosed upon houses and saying to Mr. Bank, guess what? We're not leaving. Let's talk. And they've managed to successfully renegotiate those houses. So that's, you could say, the flip good side of all that's happening.
Right. Every planet and sign has a lower level of expression, which is brought about by being unaware or unconscious of its energy. The lower octave of Neptune, which is making a very significant return, and going into a new sign, that's always major when an outer planet goes into a new sign. The lower unevolved side of Neptune is deception, confusion, misinformation. Half of all of this nonsense, these derivatives and trade swaps and credits, were actually, there was no money involved. It's all figures on an LED screen on a computer, you see.
Oh, yeah, it's all spreadsheet dollars. It's not real.
Yeah. So that's what's going to come up to a great culmination now with these eclipses.
Sure. Well, also, if I understand, the effect of Pluto into Capricorn is bringing everything that is untrue to the surface for clearing, which would leave only what stands in integrity.
Ideally.
Whether it's an institution or whether it's a person or
Yes.
a relationship for that matter.
However, you have to look at the big picture. That very same action of Pluto going into Capricorn can also trigger a police state where you have abusive by authoritarian forces.
That's interesting.
That is a very major potential
Yep.
that will manifest according to the consciousness of a given region.
Well, today, I think you know of what is called the Military Authorization Act, which sounds like it's just about authorizing the military to spend even more hundreds of billions of dollars on the armaments that nobody needs, and is the worst way to resolve any conflict, but we won't bother going into that now, why something so rational. But it also has embedded in it some provisions that basically set up a structure for a police state, where drones will be surveilling the United States. It's already happened. And even worse than that, indefinite detention by anyone, the president, who happens to be anyone at any time, can finger and say, that person, I believe, is a terrorist, and that person can be carted off by military on our own property, on our own domestic land, and put into indefinite detention without, habeas corpus.
Well, Mitchell, bring to your attention, to your listeners right now, that's exactly what they were doing during the fall of Rome. Verbatim. Half of those people in the Colosseum being thrown to the lions weren't Christians. They were political enemies that were deemed to be Christians. You see, it's all the way you manipulate. And our currency, we keep just printing money. Printing money.
Exactly.
Well, during the fall of Rome, one of the things that preceded it was it started diluting its gold and silver coins with lead and copper, which is the equivalent of just printing extra dollars.
Exactly.
It's a cycle. And if you're aware of a cycle, you can bring about its better potentials into reality.
Exactly. And curiously, we call this money fiat currency, going back to the Italian, which goes, of course, back to the Latin.
Decree.
Arun.
Adding to that Roman
Please.
thing, it reminds me that, another reason for fall of Roman Empire, the individual, what we call state in Roman context, empire-wise, they were trying to challenge Rome. So if you see in America right now, different state, they are either challenging Washington, D.C., federal government, whether it is Arizona, and this may grow. So this ultimately weakens the
Federal state.
So energy, instead of, going into making the state powerful, it gets divided, and that was also a big reason of fall of Roman Empire. So that's another question which American people have to
indeed.
think.
Indeed.
Like whether we want to get united or like we want to
be disunited.
Yes.
And both questions are circulating. Another reason for the fall of Rome, as far as I know, is that the water started to disappear. The irrigation systems, etc., started to get polluted. And I don't know if either of you are aware of this, but I'd be curious, because also if you look, of course, today, our water is so fouled that fish are literally dying by the hundreds of thousands. Salmon in the beautiful rivers in Canada are being scooped out, and they are inedible because of the contamination. Anyway, we know this is going on, lead pipes, etc., and that they didn't have water to drink. So it's just curious, because we all have said that, of course, we're moving from the oil wars into the water wars of future. Unless, and I'd like to hear about any conjunction that both of you know about, would give us the lighter side, something a little bit more fluid for our lives. Because all of what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, sounds highly disruptive in virtually every single domain of our lives.
It's only the disruption of decaying structures of thought and policy. That is really what it is. It's not an external assault. It's an implosion because the foundations, Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto rules pollution. Pluto also rules sewage treatment. Neptune rules oceans, and it rules water, and it rules poisons and toxins and drugs and medications. You see, so you're having very major planetary relationships that we have not had in many, 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 many years, not on this scope. And all of the things that Arun will talk about and the questions you'll ask me are suddenly being triggered and thrown up and being unmasked by these eclipses. Eclipses unmask the hidden causes of things, usually in a shocking manner, because the reason they're hidden is we're in denial about them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So going back to the eclipse, using the same analogy of cloud and rain.
Mm-hmm.
So too much rain brings flood, but at the same time, rain is necessary for the civilization progress, because that's how the cultivation and everything. So the Neptune water, and like you are saying, so the good part is new medicinal breakthrough. So that's the best thing coming out of this whole journey.
Mm-hmm.
Other best thing, which is like people will confront what is not working, whether foreign policy or like you touched the military act, all these questions. So this will make nation stronger, not weaker. And whenever the transition comes, there is a buffer period. So, to me, because Jupiter as if now is in Aries, so even though Aries is a sign of war, but Jupiter by nature, he's like a healing person or a guru. So he will do the transition in a more peaceful way rather than the World War III.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay.
Yes.
Now,
so what
this
you're
shows
saying
a
is
time
that
lag. This shows a time lag between the two perspectives. Vedic astrology and Western astrology use two different systems of measurement as to where planets are. You just heard Arun say that Jupiter is in Aries. In Vedic astrology, it is, because they use something called sidereal time, which is taking measurements by fixed stars. Am I not right?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's lunar-based, is it not?
No, it's a star-based.
No, it's the planetary energies and constellations are measured and geared according to where fixed stars are. In Western astrology, we measure planetary movement in reference to our sun. So therefore, depending on if you're looking at something from a different angle, Jupiter, from the position you are, can look like it's in Aries if you're Vedic, but if you're looking at it through Western perspectives and measurements, it's in
Pisces.
Taurus.
Taurus.
Yes.
Oh, forward.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes,
God.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's 51 degrees difference, isn't there?
Yeah, it depends on the, some other factor, but roughly in Jupiter case, it will be a difference of like 8 to 9 months,
Yes.
which is easier for people to understand.
Yeah.
Degree, they will not understand.
Yes.
So let's say the starting entrance of Taurus, Jupiter in Vedic will be May.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see the civilization or what we are talking in a bigger context, 6 months doesn't make a big difference.
No.
Everything happening in the world events.
Yeah, right.
But Mitchell, to calm down the confusion so much of your listeners must have, and Arun will help me with this. Years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, when Saturn was in Cancer, all of the Western astrologers, myself included, saying, oh, real estate's really going to crash. Well, it started slowing down. It started getting difficult. But it wasn't until by sidereal or Vedic progression, when Saturn went into Cancer 2 years later, that the crash really happened. So I have a personal perspective that Western astrology sort of sets it up and say, I think we're going to have a heavy winter. And then when the Vedic transits happen, from their perspective, it really manifests.
So it's sort of the difference from the subtle to the gross, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Western astrology. I mean, we're generalizing here because there are distinctions that go against this, but
Yes.
it's a nice frame that it's almost like Western sets the tone and the sense of the intention of what's going to happen, and when it happens, it's articulated by the Vedic.
Timing is like Monty touched. It's like Vedic is better in the sense of timing the event.
Yes.
Like little more accurate.
Yes, more mathematical.
And the things that overlap in Vedic and Western, because even whether you see from Vedic perspective or Western, areas of life. The zodiac is divided into different sectors. So each sector kind of signifies an area of life. So that part kind of stays the same. So if Saturn is touching, let's say, 4th house, areas of life, everything denoted by 4th house,
which are
like immigration, real estate, and movement, the public protest, all these things. So they will come. So as if now, whether you see from Western perspective or Vedic, if 4th house of any chart is activated, it will bring that changes.
Yes.
So that's the overlap part. So I will say like 60 to 70% overlaps because of that factor.
Yes.
It's overlapping, yes. That's the best way to look at it.
Good, I understand. Let's let everybody know that you're listening to A Better World with Mitchell J. Rabin, and we are conducting a roundtable on Astrology East and West with a specific focus on 2012, which we'll get back to. We're on Progressive Radio Network, and we're seated here with Monty Taylor and Arun Singh talking about the subjects of what it is that's before us. When we look, of course, to 2012, it's been the greatly discussed year of all years, as they would say, the mother of all years, because largely due to the Mayan calendar and what's said to be its completion date of one of the many calendars of the Mayans. And it's also just been foreseen by many different cultures that this year is sort of a culminating, consummating time period. And to just hear and sum up what you both have been putting on the table here already of these outer planets which move very slowly, as you said, Monty, so nicely, glacially, and they build slowly, gradually, but with a certain kind of momentum, especially as they begin to come to meet each other inside the human psyche and on our planet. So, in light of this, what do you both think that people should be most aware of and prepared for as we're moving through this, and why?
Okay, so from my perspective, and this is my perspective using Vedic astrology.
Sure.
So other Vedic astrologer may agree or not, but the way I see, going back to the Mayan world, how the world will end, very few people know.
But they don't say that the world will end at all. They
common
simply
people
say,
think,
But I say, we're making a distinction between the Hollywood version of reality
yes,
and the real one.
Yeah, so I'm touching that.
Okay.
Now, if you see from Mayan times, all the areas of civilization, Egypt, Greek, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Indus civilization, Mexican, Aztec, Mexican-US border, they are the highlight right now. And these are the most sensitive area. So that part of the world is ending. And new thing will come up.
Completing.
Exactly. So whether Pak, Afghanistan, Indus civilization part, Greek, already everybody knows. So financial and, all that. Egypt, everybody has seen. Over here, Mexican-US border and what is happening in Mexico. And then South America. So to me, this was the most interesting aspect, which I said, okay, there must be some truth, like Mayan are saying. Maybe we are not able to analyze or interpret from a little different perspective. So to me, that kind of change. So it's like ending, but in a different context. So first time in Egypt, I think a better government will come, so that will change the whole politics of that area. People call it Arab Spring, and Pak, Afghanistan situation as if now. So America, the way and all the world is there. So I don't think like NATO is like half of the world, America, how they will not be able to make a better outcome. So I'm optimistic. So I see situation will start getting better, but before they get better, they have to go really, really worse. And that's what is happening now.
Yes. I like that optimism. First you have to get undressed to get redressed.
It's a renovation, and that's what Pluto rules. And the first part of renovating a house involves destruction. You have to tear down walls, you have to live with plaster dust, you have to see the plumbing, you have to look at the foundations clearly and make sure that they're on solid ground under there. And so it's very, very chaotic and disorienting to renew something.
Yeah, exactly. Let's try to get specific now and narrow down to political, economic, social areas. As you see these influences, these conjunctions that you've both mentioned, that you put out at first, Monty, these are the central ones. Are there other, let's say, more minor eddies coming as the year of 2012 progresses?
Yes.
Could you speak a little bit about that? Then we'll come back and let's look at it through the eyes of what's happening economically.
Connect the dots between what planets do, and we can express them symbolically through the mythologies. Mythology is the language of astrology. And remember, a planet, when it goes into a certain place, it triggers something. If there's no stuck energy to trigger, it's not going to create something new. It's only going to interrelate with what is. The same way a plant can't suddenly shoot up out of the ground in the spring unless the sun gets to a certain degree in the sky, so that it is in alignment with the radioactive solar energy of the sun to trigger its germination. You see?
Beautiful.
So the sun didn't suddenly say, let there be crocuses. The sun triggered the crocus bulbs and the tulip bulbs and all the spring flowers.
Yes.
You see, that's what. So that's what's happening. But one thing I would say is I am a little concerned personally about some kind of surprise militaristic or even nuclear event happening because there's so much instability going on right now. And Uranus just went in Western astrology into Aries, which on its lower side is the side of war. And Uranus rules nuclear energy. So, and it also rules the wild card. It rules the unexpected. It rules the getting struck by lightning moment. Things change overnight, very
rapidly,
quickly,
unpredictably.
Now, let's look at where is the planet that is the ruling planet of Aries.
When you say nuclear energy, could that be either nuclear arms or nuclear energy
Both.
for electricity? Either
Both.
one.
Both. It will be both.
Unless
You could find
until we get rid of it.
The nuclear stuff could be an accident. It could be a nuclear pollution. It could be
So it could be another Fukushima.
Yes.
Anywhere in the world, actually.
Well, yes. In fact, that's what happened when Uranus first got close to Aries. You had the earthquake, Poseidon, Neptune rules earthquakes and tidal waves, and it was combined with this Uranian thing you see going on at the same time. So you had a tidal wave, an earthquake, and some nuclear reaction going, another perfect storm of seemingly unrelated things.
So when you project forward into the year 2012, Monty, based on these things that are happening now and through February, these larger planets, the outer planets, having their crescendoing effect over time. So what we're dealing with now is this is a long-term, this is a 7 to 20 year proposition.
Oh, yes.
23.
Right.
So what other, let's say, minor eddies are occurring?
Well, it's not such a minor eddy. What is going to happen now, remember we just said certain planets went direct, like Uranus and Jupiter's going direct, etc. But Mars is
sounds warlike to me.
Mars is about to go retrograde. Mars doesn't go retrograde every other day.
Only Mercury does.
Yeah, Mercury 3 times a year. And by the way, Mercury is going to go direct tomorrow.
Mercury
will go direct tomorrow.
Maybe we should have done this show tomorrow.
No, this is exactly what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, Mars will be going retrograde. Okay, now here's what's going to happen.
But I understand you both very well.
Mars normally spends 2 months going through a sign. But when it goes retrograde, it spends 8 months in a sign. And it's in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo is the nutrition, food industry sign. It is the sign of jobs. So when you talk about economics and politics, what's the battle cry for both parties right now?
Jobs.
Mars will be going retrograde, slowing down the creation of jobs no matter what they do, because they can't make an orderly integrated structure out of the chaotic idealistic theories that both polar political perspectives are promoting.
Wow.
And that's going to go on until...
Those were a lot of P's.
Yeah, alliteration's my thing. But that's going to go on till July. So do not expect things to ground in the job front. And no one will be able.
Does that also mean that health will be also, generally speaking, reduced because it's also very much a sign of health?
Well, it is in Western astrology, but it's also the nutrition and the practical side of health. It's the nursing. So you're going to see nurses laid off and unions fighting over nursing jobs, for example. That's a health issue. That's the way the health industry, I think, is going to be affected. I don't think there's any plagues coming or anything. Those.
Arun, what, from your view, what is
going back to the difference between Vedic and Western?
But don't laugh; it could happen.
Mm-hmm. Though in Vedic, Mars is in Leo. So Leo is representative of royal and state governments.
Indeed.
And if we see whether Egypt, Libya, everywhere, people are against state government. Russia, even in America, you mentioned military point, right? And another thing, it's staying for a very long time. So you're seeing next 6 months, public everywhere against the state, no matter what part of the world. And Mars also rules Aries, sign, war and again. Scorpio, death, beginning and end. Mm-hmm. So beginning and end, and connect the dot with the Leo, which is the royal aristocrat or state government. So there is to me, beginning of end of the British monarch. Salary cut is already there, so that thing will start.
I thought the British monarchy ended long ago.
No. And then the state government, whether Russian, election, everybody knows. In America, like you mentioned, this military act is coming and Occupy Wall Street again, people against the state. In India, the Gandhi leader is starting movement, and everywhere, no matter what part of the world. Now, there is another thing we have to see, which is the individual chart of the nations. So why the movement is not there in China or Japan or Korea or Brazil, So everything has to be combined. It's a very extensive analysis. People don't realize so many factors are there.
Yes.
So considering the eclipse chart of each nation gives us a better idea how the energy will manifest in different nations.
Because nations have charts too.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So same thing.
Nations are people too.
Exactly. So in like in U.S. case, everybody knows July 4th, founding
birthday.
Exactly. So the second house, which is the house of finance, Mars is entering, and finance is the main issue. And for next 6 months, even the election will be decided based on Occupy Wall Street against a movement against Wall Street, against finance. America
against excessive, unethical, illegal finance, not against finance.
No, means if you see from a larger understanding perspective, like area of life which is indicated. See, everywhere there is a good
place for cleanup. I think that's what I keep hearing.
It's
the renovation notion.
It's a revolution against decaying financial policies.
Right.
Corruption is everywhere. Corruption is in politics also. Every governor goes to jail. Like 3 governors have already gone. So why not that movement is starting? It will wait when Mars will come in the politic area of the earth. So,
yes, I do.
Understanding where the energy is going. And same thing in Europe, financial, Euro decision that is deciding like all these 27 nations.
So what becomes the, for the everyday person to hear all of this, what preparation can people make economically? I mean, does what you're saying suggest buy gold? By silver or by food, in other words, what is the practical application of this delicious knowledge that you're both putting forth?
So, Monty, you want to go? Okay.
Well, the first thing I tell people in lectures lately is please get your life on a cash basis. Will you please stop using debit cards and credit cards and buying your Starbucks so that you can get mileage points And I tell them, why? So you can get strip searched at the airport for a flight that's going to get canceled? Excuse me. People are not seeing what is really happening. This is all illusion, you see. So
is that the Neptunian influence?
Yes, well, it's Pluto as well, you see. I always tell everyone, please, the big disclaimer I make is I am financially illiterate. I'm the most financially illiterate person I know, but I'm a dedicated astrologer. And one of my big Wall Street clients, that's another big thing to me. I can't believe all these big Wall Street hedge fund people come to me, and they're very nice people who are caught up in a system. Well, anyway, they ask me the most piercing questions. So one of them said, Monty, I want you to do the natal chart of the euro, and I want you to put it around my company's chart. And I said, where am I going to do that? All right. Well, astrologists, we have these databases that we can go into, and we can get these charts.
Sure.
Well, when I looked at the birth chart of the euro, there's nothing more powerful than Pluto going over your sun. It will kill you or cure you, but there will be nothing halfway. And in February, the sun is going over Pluto is going over the natal sun of the chart of the euro, not Europe, the euro.
What is the sun of the euro?
Aquarius, I believe.
Okay. Very interesting. So it's going to make it, so it will continue on and sustain,
it will,
or it
definitely
will break
change
it.
Yeah. What Pluto touches, it changes irrevocably. The change is permanent. But the change can be good, positive, or it can be negative, unevolved.
Understood. Very interesting.
So I will touch, a few parts and very fast because of the time, and there are so many countries in the world. So the first advice.
Let's focus on the United States, not India tonight.
Yeah. So Americans are very smart people. They are already doing that. So real estate wise, if you see, most people, they are either buying like stock or real estate in South America. So that part is good.
Africa.
Now, from what I see, Chinese stocks will not do good. It's like Chinese economy is like reverse of America in the sense of public is suffering in America, but richer are getting richer. In America or China, public is getting better, but the stocks and some other company, there will be some kind of a setback or the investment wise. And in Britain, Europe, everybody knows. Going back to the euro, now eclipse, they work in a cycle of 9.5 years roughly, or you can sum up like 10 years. So in 10 years, 9 years, they repeat and touch the same axis, and that same thing goes to the next level. So Europe or European Union and all these things, 2000. 9/11 attack, terrorism issue, 2001. So now, this year, Bin Laden was killed. 10-year cycle completed. Euro, another cycle, 10 year, going to the next stage. What next? So to me, the next euro big change will happen 9 years from now. So it's like a transition.
Well, that assumes that it continues. After what you were just saying, Monty, of Pluto, what was going over its sun?
Pluto is going over its sun. But Pluto actually, it moves very slowly. The changes don't manifest like Uranus overnight.
Okay.
You see, Pluto and Neptune both. It's a phase. It's a transition always.
Okay.
And Arun...
so in other words, we're not going to see the disappearance of the euro anytime soon, even if it's going to die.
But I do see that you are going to see a massive international phase of currency values changing against each other. That I am quite convinced of. Don't you think so, Arun?
So and when Saturn, going back to the Vedic thing, enters Scorpio, which signifies bank and currency, then the process will become more active, which is 3 years from now. And Jupiter is entering Taurus, another sign of currency. So the talks will start, but common people may not know unless the Saturn comes there and Scorpio is ending. So the bank and financial institute, they have to end in the sense of whatever was happening earlier and change according to international law. So Scorpio, Saturn, which is like 15, 16 onward, those 3 years, they will indicate future of euro. As per my belief, there should be one currency in the world. So
Well, eventually
you think
that
that
may
we're
happen.
moving in that direction?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
I agree
astrologically?
with that. I
Yes,
think so,
so-
but it's probably 2025, 2000. It's
Geologically, what do you see happening, Monty and Arun,
well.
over this course of 2012?
I think you're going to see with Neptune going into Pisces for the first time in 153 years. I think you're going to see a cycle of undersea earthquakes and volcanic activity of very significant proportion. I think you're going to see weather changes. I think you're going to see, yes, an increase in your average earthquake. We used to have them every other day, then we don't have them for a few years, and then they start up getting very active again. Those on the surface are some of the things that you're going to have. Because
You mean below the surface?
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, I always also say, listen, psychologically look at it. When the Earth has an earthquake, it's like the planet going to the chiropractor.
Yeah.
It has some stress relieved from it and
Truly.
released, you see.
Truly.
So it's reflecting us.
Interesting. Are there particular hot spots on the planet that you think we should be looking out for in particular? Or is everything relatively equal from that point of view?
See, I will go back to the Mayan calendar thing. To me, the most sensitive part are again the civilization areas. So whether Mesopotamia, Indus, Greek, and in political sense more, and geopolitical. Frankly, I didn't look too much, but what I saw was like during World War, nuclear energy, came. And so to me, the next energy thing will be a green energy. Like I'm optimistic. So I see, okay, nobody will die or world is not like something has to come, So from the positive side, and not, like, if anybody believes in God or even if they don't believe science, how he will communicate with us. So the Japan earthquake was a communication from higher being. Listen, find another alternative. Focus on green energy, solar energy, wind energy. So this is like a trailer. If you don't change, something big is coming. And now you're going back to willpower. Will also plays a role. We are talking about astrology.
Yes.
So these are the indication, but ultimate decision people have to make, state government. So the will has to take part. And to me, the green alternative, we are already seeing electric car coming in 4 or 5 years, so that's another thing.
For sure.
And some other new way of...
I'm very involved.
Yeah, and the most negative point I see, again, which you talked earlier, water issue. That's something like nobody's talking. And to me, the number one issue is water for two reasons. First, we are 80% water. We can't survive without water. And 90% of disease, they happen because of the pollution in water.
Waterborne disease.
And nobody's talking about water. So to me, that's
well, many of us have been talking about it for a long time, but you certainly won't find it on the commercial media.
Exactly.
You must turn to places like PRN and other, Pacifica Radio and other places and the internet to get real news.
Yeah, and going back to what Monty touched, Neptune, so they are also all the water planets. So, if someone doesn't know like astrology,
I see
it's
Poseidon ruling.
Exactly. So if someone sees, okay, and Pluto is in Capricorn, going back to Western, it's an earth sign. So that's another. Earth means geothermal energy, focusing on that, or like glacier, doing something with that to have water. So these are the area in some way we can see where the planets are and what are the elements, and we can find the solutions.
Got it. No pun intended, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's go back in our only few minutes left. I want to go back to this idea of preparing. You said something, Monty, about you've been encouraging people for quite a long time. I know I've heard you in your lectures say, get rid of the credit cards and the debit cards, or certainly not rely on them. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
Be in cash positions in many ways. Be probably frugal is probably a smart idea, as well as fluid in all of your dealings. I've also heard you say that dealing with food and very real practical things that people need are the businesses of the future, as opposed to, oh my God, just, so-called day trading and derivatives and credit swaps.
Yes.
Well, of course, normal people aren't involved in those things, but they are involved in trading and, you could say
influenced by
money making money.
Yeah, they're influenced by that. They may not be doing it.
So from that point of view, what else do you, in our last minute or so, would you share with the audience about
the
that?
bottom line, since we have 1 minute, I am concerned that in Western society here in America, we have forgotten how to create income. We only know how to go out and beg for a job to earn it or to get it through an investment. Instead of going out, we are being forced into entrepreneurialism. So you can't just flippantly go and be an entrepreneur. You have to be relevant with whatever it is you're doing to create income. That's the quick synopsis of that.
Excellent. Okay. Be in touch with your heart, your passion, and do something that's meaningful to you. I summed that up, if you don't mind.
Respect nature, save natural resources, do fast once a week. I'm giving practical thing which will work.
Yes.
Less greedy and everything all the saints said, non-attachment, don't get attached to materialistic thing. Very simple, 2 words.
Yes. Be sane, be in the flow. Monty, do you have a website, phone number you'd like to give out?
You can reach me actually best by a direct email to my name, Montgomery Taylor, followed by my lucky number 22, Montgomery Taylor 22 at nyc.rr.com.
Excellent. A master number at that. And Arun?
People can reach me on Facebook as Arun Yoga and on my email, Arun Advisor, ADVISER @yahoo.com.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you both for being on the show today. This was really illuminating, and I really appreciate the perspectives of you both.
Enjoyed it, Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you,
glad. Absolutely. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Come join our newsletter and community at www.abetterworld.net. I'm so glad you joined us, and come again next week, and we will be continuing on this journey of who's doing what to create and contribute to a better world. Thanks so much.
This is PRN for the Progressive Radio Network.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of the dreams.
My name is Rachel Trachtenberg.
And I'm Julia Cumming.
Our show, Pure Imagination, is on every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us each week for the latest in arts, music, politics, through the perspective of conscious teens.
If you miss a show, you can always check out our archives at prn.fm.
The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
Hello, this is Ellen Kamai, the Natural Nurse. Along with Dr. Eugene Zamperone, we host The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. We are both authors, medical school professors, and natural health practitioners. We take you out into the field to explore ancient indigenous herbal healing, natural foods, homeopathy, and the mind-body interlude. Listen live to The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z every Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on PRN.FM. The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you are coming with us.
Definition of news dissection. Going deeper between the lines with context and background. I'm Danny Schechter, your news dissector, here Fridays at 1 Eastern Time or anytime in our archives on PRN.FM. The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
Hi, I'm Johnny Mueller of the Expat Files, living in Latin America. It's the only show of its kind that tells you exactly what it's like to live, work, and or play in Latin America. So if you're thinking about getting off that first world treadmill, or just curious about how you can live a first world lifestyle down here in Latin America for a third of what you pay up in the States, and with half the stress, like I've been doing for the last 20 years, just tune in Monday and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or click on the archives for all my past shows at prn.fm. The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
South of the border, down Mexico way.
This is PRN.FM. The Progressive Radio Network is moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
I'm Gary Noll, and I'd like to welcome you to this program. Today, we have one guest and one theme, and we'll be inviting you to share your points of view a little later on in the program. My guest is Kevin Annett. He is a former minister with the United Church of Canada who was defrocked for his pursuing investigations and research into the Holocaust of Native American children, which has become better known as Canada's genocide. His publications, which include Hidden from History, the Canadian Holocaust, and later Love and Death in the Valley, have created much of a storm in the Anglican Church. So much to talk about. We're going to get started immediately, revealing Canada's own Holocaust against innocent children in the church-run Indian residential schools from which upwards of 50,000 Native American children never return. Nice to have you back with us, Kevin.
Hey, Gary.
Kevin, let's begin with the assumption that the people listening are not familiar with this. Take us step by step through what the story is and how for so long no one, not the BBC, none of the major news sources that could have uncover this and certainly had the resources, chose to.
Well, it's interesting, just briefly on that first point. As far back as 1907, it was front-page coverage on major newspapers in Canada that over half the children were dying in these Indian boarding schools. And